And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us today on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Bill Coletti. He is the founder and CEO of KIF. He is an expert in reputation management, proactive risk management, and crisis decision making. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Critical Moments, The New Mindset of Reputation Management. He is one of the go-to guys in this space. So welcome aboard, Bill. I've got a ton of questions here. Welcome.
Hey, Peter, it is great to be with you.
Thank you. So let's just sort of dive in. You fit into the category, at least from my perspective, of the professional services firm that's looking to use content and thought leadership to differentiate and attract clients and sort of put out your perspective, because there's lots of people in your field, as there are in almost every field, doing similar things. So let's talk a little bit about your decision to publish the book and investments that you make into thought leadership and how that connects back to the business.
That's awesome. So the book journey, I've sort of subscribed to that adage that I think everybody's got a book in them, and I wanted to try to get out some of the ideas and some of the IP, and the idea really came to me on a plane ride back from visiting with a client, where the CEO challenged me. She challenged me with how do you articulate what you really think, and so that ultimately became the book. And for as much of anything, the journey to writing a book was a kind of self therapy for me to kind of work out some of my ideas and present it in a logical, thoughtful way.
Right. So one of the benefits of the book is it's a forcing mechanism to get you to say, all right, Bill, how do you clearly articulate this perspective that you've had? Because prior to that, you've got the reputation, you've been doing this a long time. Nobody really asked you to describe how it is that you do what you do, right? So it's a forcing mechanism to get the framework out there. Once you decide to publish the book, let's talk a little bit about what you learned about the publishing universe, because now that you decide to do it, there's 50 other things that you have to answer. Do I self-publish? Do I go to the traditional publisher? Like all that format of the book. Tell us about the decisions you made along the way.
Yeah, I wanted something that was approachable, easy to use. The big idea behind it was we're not going to make a ton of money selling the book.
Sure.
It's nice, it's a perk, and that's great when we get those checks from Amazon and the other outlets we've got it. It was really more of a lead generator, just a place to start and have conversations. And so we wanted from all of those decisions, it goes from font type to what does the cover art look like to my picture on the back and things like that. And so I just really wanted a very conservative, classy, professional looking book that kind of represents my brand and represents what we do as a firm. So we really wanted something really sort of clear and strong, because that's what we try to be in the wisdom that we provide to our clients. We went with a firm here in Austin, Lioncrest, that had done some business books. I talked to a couple of other authors that were here and really sort of liked their process and liked the way they let me
Okay.
do it. And the perk of, I kind of get to control the content and control the copy. So it's not a classic self-publish route, but it's, I didn't do a proposal and pitch it to one of the larger firms. I really sort of went with this publisher here, but I really needed an expert. For me to lay it out and take it to Kinko's was not what I wanted to do.
Right. And it doesn't present well that way either. So now that you've got the book out there, what are some of the things that or how are you using the book to differentiate yourself and your firm in the marketplace and attract net new clients? Maybe that's two questions baked into one.
Yeah, so we use it as a credentializer. So we shared a copy with you, and I knew I was going to have a conversation with you, and I've been fortunate enough to have conversations with you and learn about thought leadership leverage in another venue. And so we use it as a tool. If I have a conversation with someone, whether it be a prospect or someone that we're collaborating with, it's just a nice big business card. It's a nice big way to sort of share what we do and what we believe. I also use it with clients, and what I'll do particularly with a client is that if we get fortunate enough and my IP is connected, is I can circle page 55 or whatever page and say, hey, Peter, you might want to read this section because that's what we were talking about on the conference call. And so I use it that way. You can only do that one or two times. You can't then inundate them with books, but
Right.
I have used it that way as a tool. I try not to in fact, I don't just spam people with it. And if I have an interesting conversation with someone, I will try to put a Post-it note or my business card on, the page of particular interest, because I don't expect anybody to plow through all the pages of it. I want to highlight,
Sure,
check out page
sure.
55. I think that's going to be of real interest to you, or this case study that I highlight that's there. So I use it as it's a big, highly credentializing business card.
Got it. And it's also a differentiator, right? So if someone is in the market for a firm like yours, they're probably talking to a couple of people, right?
Yep.
And if you've literally written the book and the other folks that are in contention haven't, not that it will always be the tiebreaker, but I think it speaks to the level of credibility, the cachet, the gravitas, the expertise that you've got in your space.
I think it does too. And I was on a call with a prospect recently, and I don't know if we have an opportunity to work together. It might not be a perfect fit, but regardless, she was very, very favorably inclined to like what I had to say, because she said it's clear that you have a process and you've thought about this before you talk to us. And so the book serves that role, because I have tried to think through a lot of these things as we share them. We don't want to get hung up, paralysis analysis or analysis
Sure,
paralysis,
sure.
but we have thought about the approach and thought about why organizations need to manage their reputation and what do they need to do to recover after a crisis.
Got it. So let's move to sort of the ROI, because I think a lot of folks dive into the book world with hopes and dreams and aspirations, etc. But you have to, you're a business guy, right? You got to do the math and say this is the cost, both hard and soft. There's opportunity cost, and then there's dollar cost. Give us a sense of, and we don't have to get into the actual dollars and cents, but the ROI or the impact to you and the business has been from having the book out. And how long has it been out now?
It's been out about a year and a half. Yep.
Okay, so good enough
Actually, 2
time
years.
to.
2 years. The summer of 17. So it's coming up on 2.
Okay,
Yep.
so long enough time to sort of at least get an indication. So how would you rate the ROI against other marketing activities you've done as a firm?
I had a number in mind. I had like 10x. I thought 10x was a good number.
Okay,
I can point to two clients that have reached out, or two people that we now work with that have reached out specifically because of the book. And so I'm pleased with it. I
okay,
really like that credentializing that it does that's there. I don't know if the ROI is 10x or if there's like this huge home run that I can articulate, but I think that it is a net positive. The time and resources put into it relative to the return, it feels like the return has been greater than that. And so I think the investment made sense. It's so hard to,
yep,
6.25 or 10. I don't really know
yeah,
what it is, but
exactly.
it feels like a net positive.
So I love it. So what other marketing activities, if any, were you doing as a firm that you sort of diverted marketing dollars from A to B as an experiment?
So we were doing some webinars, periodic quarterly webinars or monthly webinars at that point. Um, and we sort of moved away from that. And we were also doing some, I was working with a group that was sort of pitching me to go speak and do things like that. And that's great. Being on stages is really valuable for us. I think that the thing we started doing less of during that journey, honestly, was sales. We continued our
Right.
content stuff, but it's really just me having conversations and directly, selling, quote unquote. We don't really directly sell, but being engaged, prospecting, and reaching out to my network. We
Sure.
did not do
Sure.
that because if you quantify over the course of the 5 years of the firm, almost 85% of our revenue has come directly from referrals, not from people finding us on the internet or finding our content.
Yeah. Well, and that's just the nature of your business, right?
Totally, much more referral based.
So, one other question relative to the book: if we think of sort of Bill world, pre-book and post-book, in the sort of post-book world of the last 2 years, has it opened other doors? Maybe speaking, or I don't know what, but other doors for you that might not have opened if you didn't have the book.
Yeah, so we get asked to participate on a number of podcasts. So it's open those doors. It's a great conversation starter and that sort of credentializer, as I mentioned. Speaking, absolutely, it's both an opportunity to speak because of the book, and then it's actually able to share with people that want to follow up and want to learn more. I can actually share copies of the book with them, which is great. So I think that it is. And honestly, there's a personal part of it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud that I wrote it. Proud that we got those ideas out there. But I think the biggest thing has been invited on podcasts, invited to do some speaking and do some webinars. In fact, I just hung up on one earlier today from an experts network, which was a great conversation. And it did sort of make the connection with the book.
Great. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So you mentioned, proud, and I think oftentimes people overlook the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of pride, getting it out there. How did everybody writes in different ways? Did you have a ghostwriter? Did you do it on your own? Was it easy for you? Difficult? Let's talk about sort of the actual writing of the book process for you.
Yeah. So I had two people that helped me. We had been doing webinars for about a year in advance. So we had probably 8 or so webinars put in the can on various topic, which turned out to be chapters. And they weren't logical per se. In the order that I produced them they weren't intended to link together. So the first person I worked with was an outliner. I worked with somebody who had worked at Random House, and they just really helped me organize the logic of the book. And if you just look at the table of contents, there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, and it's really logical the way that it was approached. So that outliner was really helpful.
Okay.
And so we had all of this rich content. So the chapters, to a certain extent, represent a webinar piece, and so we had that. So the next piece that we needed was really just some copy editing to take what I've already done, what I supplemented with it, and then had someone actually sort of help copy edit and make it a little bit more stitched together. So the outline was a beefy outline. It actually had intros and exits that he helped me with. It was all my content from those webinars and all my content that I then supplemented from some of my thinking had changed from when we produced the webinar a year before, and then someone to really have it all work together and make sense. And so, new content, not webinar-based content, was about 20%.
So I want to talk about that 20% then, because you in your world, you had a year's worth of webinars to pull back on. Some people that might be blogs, that might be articles, that might be something else. And I think for many people, when you start the book writing process, it becomes daunting when you think that you're staring at literally the blank page. But when you go back forensically and say, wait a minute, this isn't my first day at the rodeo. I have a point of view. I've expressed it in various formats or modalities. Maybe it's speaking or video or whatever. How do I get some help to have somebody go through that with me and put it into a structured and organized way so that gets repurposed in a valuable way? It sounds like that's pretty much what you did.
And so that's what that outliner was so valuable with. We shared a Google folder with each other, and I plopped all that stuff in there into what I thought was a logical order. He then sort of saw that and rejiggered it into much more of a chronological order. Mine was sort of in a spatial. It made sense to me spatially. He sort of helped do that. So absolutely, no, we had a huge head start, and that 20% is not. If the book is 250 pages, that 20% doesn't represent 50 pages. It's sort of 2 or 3 pages interspersed 10 places throughout the book. And so huge head start to have content. And I know you're such an evangelist for people to get their thoughts and ideas out there. But you're right. My hunch is most people have got a better head start than they think they do. But putting it together logically is the hard part.
Yeah, and that's the point. So I think there's a difference between creating content, which most of us do almost to excess, and then the other craft, and you had that outline person help you, of structuring it and organizing it and figuring out exactly where the little gaps are to fill in. Because like you said, it wasn't just, 20%, I need another 50 pages. It's in chapter 5, I need, 2 more pages or a client case study that would bring to light a theory that I'm putting forth or something along those lines. And it's that stitching process that if you do it poorly, it looks like Frankenstein. But if you do it well with some help is really good.
Yeah, huge difference.
So any other lessons learned? So, and again, think about this from the perspective of, there are lots of folks out there that wouldn't necessarily consider themselves, quote, thought leaders. They're in the professional services space. They're consultants, they're coaches, they're advisors, et cetera. And they've dabbled with or are dabbling with using content and thought leadership as a marketing tool and a branding tool, et cetera. Any counsel to those types of folks?
Well, I don't know how anybody in professional services can afford but not be a thought leader. Now, whether they broadcast that thought leadership and do it the way that you help people do it is one thing. But if you're in a professional services firm and you're providing a valued resource to clients that are paying you money, it is your thoughts that are going to lead those conversations with your clients. So whether you like it or not, and whether you write it down or not and broadcast it, you're a thought leader. And so I think it's a half a step from getting to that point of actually understanding ideas and then explaining them and then broadcasting them and sharing them.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate all that you've shared with us today, Bill. This has been great. I thank you for your time and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.